What's up, YouTube? Timus here. Here is my throwback segment where I talk about the films that turns 10, 20, and 30 this week. Alright, the films celebrating their 10th anniversary. We, of course, just had the recent Fallout one, but of course, 10 years ago this week, we had the release of Insidious Chapter 2. Insidious Chapter 2, of course, was a follow up to the very hit film Insidious from 2011. Once again, starring Rose Byrne and Patrick Wilson, and was directed by James Wan. This time around, it, it had Wilson and Byrne reprising their roles as Josh and Rana Lambert, a husband and wife who seeks to uncover the secret that has left them dangerously connected to the spirit world. There. Now, of course, there was like two other Insidious movies that did not return that where they did not reprise their roles, but of course, the recent one, which was not so good, did include Byrne and Wilson reprising their roles and pretty much a follow up to Chapter 2. I actually really quite like this is Chapter 2. I thought it was a really decent follow up, nowhere near as good as the original, but I still thought it was really as creepy. Seeing Shay coming back was really cool, so not a bad follow up there. Alright, also turning 10, we got the crime comedy film, The Family, which was directed by Luc Besson, starring the likes of Robert De Niro, Michelle Pfeiffer, Tommy Lee Jones, Diana Agron, and here's what the film's about. It follows a mafia family in the witness protection program who wants to change their lives here. And this movie did not really get much praise at the time, but I thought The Family was awesome. I mean, seeing Robert De Niro go back to his mafia roots, I thought was really cool to see. I mean, hey, Robert De Niro is always the best when it comes to his gangster roots, whether it's like Goodfellas, Casino, The Family. I cannot wait to see that new one he's doing called Wise Guys. That actually sounds like it'd be really cool. Of course, The Irishman most recent. And of course, you had like Diana Agron popping up in this. Tommy Lee Jones was pretty good in this one. I had a fun time with it. It was really entertaining. It was of course directed by Luc Besson, who you might know directed stuff like Leon the Professional, The Fifth Element. He also has that new movie that just premiered at the Toronto National Film Festival called Dogman. I'm intrigued to check that one out, by the way. So yeah, this was actually a pretty fun one too. I mean, you don't really get much like these mafia, gangster comedies, and it was really entertaining to watch. So, all right, now films turning 20 this week. We got Eli Roth's horror classic Cabin Fever, which stars a group of college graduates who rent a cabin in the woods and begins to fall victim into a fleshing virus. Now, this was pretty much way before the pandemic happened. Also, very interesting to see this movie. Like, I actually rewatched this movie like during 2020 because of obviously the pandemic was going around and everything. The first Cabin Fever, that is. The other ones wasn't so great. But the first Cabin Fever is really good. I mean, shows that like how you should be careful, around people and especially people who are sick mostly. Of course, you had folks like Ryder Strong, who you might know from Boy Meets World fame. So, seeing Eric from so of course seeing Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World fame was pretty interesting to see him like tackle like a horror film like this. And I mean, just seeing Sean Hunter in like a horror thriller, okay, that's something I never knew I needed at the time. But yeah, I had a fun time with Cabin Fever. It was really creepy, really entertaining. I believe this was Eli Roth's first film, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there, but by the way, his new movie Thanksgiving, I'm really fascinated seeing that. So yeah, Eli Roth he could do no wrong, in my opinion. All right. Also turning 20, we got the Ridley Scott film Matchstick Men, starring Nicolas Cage, Sam Rockwell, and of course it's about like this prohibit a con artist and the protege who are on the verge of pulling off a swindle when when the former teenage star arrives unexpectedly here. It starred a very young Alison Lohman, who you might know from Drag Me to Hell fame. Matchstick Men is a really intriguing film. I mean, not really Scott's best work, nothing like that, but it definitely is a really fun, dark heist comedy. Nicolas Cage and Sam Rockwell both great in this. Really decent film. Alright. Also turning 20, we got Once Upon a Time in Mexico, directed by Rob Rodriguez, and was the third and final installment of the El Mariachi trilogy, the follow up to El Mariachi, as well as Desperado. This time around, you had Antonio Banderas reprising his role here. And you also had the likes of, Johnny Depp, Salma Hayek, Mickey Rourke, Danny Trejo, Willem Dafoe, Cheech Marin. And it features like Antonio Banderas back as El Mariachi, who is recruited by CIA agent Sheldon Sands, played by Johnny Depp, to kill a corrupt general responsible for the death of his wife, Carolina, played by Salma Hayek. Now, I probably always prefer Desperado out of this trilogy, but Once Upon a Time in Mexico is a really cool film to end off this trilogy. He actually pretty much recorded like the Mexico trilogy, which I thought cool. The film's definitely very violent, very entertaining. I really would love to see Rob Rodriguez come back to come back to his Mexico trilogy. I mean, I know he's doing stuff like Spy Kids and another Alita film. Me, I want to see him come back to this trilogy. Either you get Antonio Banderas back, you get another actor playing the role. I would love to see this. To see El Mariachi back on screen again. And of course, Antonio Banderas was great in this. Salma Hayek, who does not love seeing her on screen. Ava Mendes is always great. Seeing Johnny Depp popping up in this was cool. Really fun flick if you guys haven't seen it. Alright. Also turning 20, we got Lost in Translation, directed by Sofia Coppola, starring Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson, Giovanni Ribisi, Anna Faris. And Lost in Translation is terrific. Of course, this movie actually got nominated for Best Picture. Bill Murray got nominated. It obviously lost out to Lord of the Rings, so that's that. But Lost in Translation, I thought wasn't really decent film. Was really a leveler to the film business here. If you guys don't know much about the story this film, it stars Bill Murray, who made one of his best performances here, who plays Bob Harris, who's this fading American movie star who is having a midlife crisis when he travels to Tokyo to promote Centauri whiskey. And of course, he befriends with this strange American named Charlotte, played by Scarlett Johansson. And of course, he had Anna Faris, Giovanni Ribisi was great in this. Definitely had great performances all around. To be honest, I wouldn't mind if this had won Best Picture over Lord of the Rings, but I like Lord of the Rings, don't get me wrong. But I think either this or maybe Mr. Whatever should have won that year. But hey, it is what it is, I guess. But Lost Translation is a really good flick worth checking out. All right, we also got two other more smaller films that turns 20. We got the Adrien Brody film Dummy, where he plays this ex-officer worker who becomes a ventriloquist. It had Mila Jovovich, Vera Farmiga, Jared Harris. Really decent flick right there. There's also the horror film Hangman's Curse, starring a very young Leighton Meester, Mel Harris, David Keith. And it's where bullying students are becoming deathly ill after screaming the name of a legendary ghost. And this is actually not that great a film, but it is more more of a guilty pleasure here. Of course, this was Leighton Meester before Gossip Girl fame, so seeing her in this was interesting. So yeah, not a bad film, just not that great. Alright, now films turning 30. We got the Quentin Tarantino scripted film True Romance. Of course, I was just talking about a film with Ridley Scott, directed by Ridley Scott, and now this was directed by his brother, Tony Scott. Of course, True Romance stars the likes of Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Chris Walken, Sam Jackson, Brad Pitt, James Gandolfini, Tom Sizemore, Chris Penn, Michael Rappaport. And if you guys don't know much about the story here, you got Christian Slater, who plays this comic book nerd and Elvis fanatic, Clarence. and this prostitute named Alabama, played by Patricia Arquette, who falls in love, and Clarence breaks the news that pretty much to her pimp, and ends up killing him here, and he of course grabs a suitcase of white powder sugar here on his way of thinking, and of course on his way thinking is Alabama's closing, and to of course hit the road for California, hoping to sell it, and of course also the mom is after them. And this is a terrific one. I mean, definitely one of Tony Scott's best work. It is scripted by Quentin Tarantino, which I used to always thought he directed this, because definitely had Quentin Tarantino's feel to it. But it is a really intriguing one. Of course, the chemistry between Slater and Arquette's good. It is a shame lots of people in this movie sadly no longer with us, like James Gandolfini, Chris Penn, obviously directed Tony Scott, sadly passed as well. Um, Tom Sizemore recently passed. So really a shame that lots of people in this film, or even behind the camera, is no longer with us. And Michael Rappaport was great in this too. I mean, it's very violent, very entertaining, really fun thrill ride. So yeah, Tony Scott obviously one of the best filmmakers there is. So yeah, really good film. That's how I say that. All right, also turning 30, we got the Joy Luck Club. Of course, starring the likes of Ming Na Wen, and one like maybe first like America film featuring an all Asian cast here. It was directed by Wayne Wang, and it is based on a 1989 novel. If you guys don't know much about this story here, uh, it's where like four older women who are all Chinese immigrants living in San Francisco meets regularly to play mahjong, eat, and tell stories here. The Joy Luck Club is a really great one. Of course, Wayne Wang directed this really well. There's still talks about possible sequels, so that's gonna be interesting. I mean, before Crazy Rich Asians came around and became like the first major studio film to saw an Asian cast, this was actually the first major one, really. And I can say it was pretty much the Crazy Rich Asians and Joyride of that era. And it's really decent one. Great performances all around. So really good flick. All right. Also turning dirty, we got Oh Boy, the Real McCoy, based on a 1970s or 80s TV series of the same name, starring the likes of Kim Basinger, Val Kilmer. And if you guys don't know much about it, you got Kim Basinger who plays Karen McCoy, who was released from prison with nothing but clothes on her back. And before being incarcerated, she was like the bank robber of her time, and now she wishes for nothing more than settle down and find new love here. But of course, you have this like dirty parole officer, an old business partner, an ex husband here who will have like to do the rethinking and save her son. And her hot drive here is JT, played by Val Kilmer, which funny that Val Kilmer had like two films that same day. He had both this and he had True Romance. So nice thing for Val Kilmer right there. And yeah, the Real McCoy film adaptation is so terrible. This movie definitely it definitely does not have the laughs to it. The performances in this is terrible. It of course scored lots of Razzies and all. You also had like Terrence Stamp was also in this film. I mean, yeah, it was just god. It was garbage. So yeah. Now, last but not least, also turning dirty is the crime biography comedy, Money for Nothing, which is loosely based on the life of Joey Coyle, who in 1981 discovered his 1.2 million that had fallen out of an armored van in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The film is a fictionalized version of the events. And it had a really decent cast. You had the likes of Michael Madsen, Debbie Mazur, Benicio del Toro, you know, True Romance co-stars Michael Rappaport and James Gandolfini, Phil Seymour Hoffman. And this is actually a pretty fun crime film. Of course, the performances is great. Really fun that Michael Rapport and James Gandolfini were also in True Romance. So nice that they actually had multiple films at same day too. So yeah, really fun flick. Definitely very entertaining. The whole true crimes aspect is interesting. So really decent film if you guys haven't seen that. Very underrated too. But that's pretty much it there. Let me leave you guys. Oh yeah, let me leave you guys. Which of these films stand out to you the most? To me, the 10-year one is, even though I like Insidious Chapter 2, the one that stands out to me most there will probably be The Family. That is really good. The 20-year one, I'm going to go with Lost in Translation. And the 30-year one is, of course, True Romance. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. This is Henry Sign.